Good evening. Founder and president of Slovakia-based think tank for strategic analysis, Jan Cingel, will sit down with the first analytical tonight. Mr. Cingel, thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you very much for inviting me.
What brings you to Armenia? I'm
attending one project activity that is implemented here within the project supported by the International Visegrad Fund. That is a fund that is connecting 4 countries of the Central Europe: Czechia, Slovakia, Hungary and Poland, and in the partnership with our partners from Armenia, Center for Policy Studies. We are organizing one training for civil servants from Armenia, where we are talking about the policy-making process and communication and some other related topics.
As you know, we are in a peace process of one-sided willingness for negotiations and one-sided willingness for concessions on the Armenian side, and maximalistic demands and militaristic rhetoric on the side of Azerbaijan. What is the way out of this impasse when you look at it from afar?
I've been following, of course, the conflict between Armenia and Azerbaijan for quite some time. And the recent developments in the year 2020 and then 2023, which put Armenia in a very vulnerable position, exacerbated by the geopolitical situation connected with Russia's invasion of Ukraine, put Armenia in a really volatile position, but also in a quite vulnerable position. And I absolutely understand the need for the peace process in this region. Armenia is, and in my opinion also should, negotiate in terms of the international law. So any agreement that will be or should be in the end of this process should be in line with the international law, and therefore Armenia should seek support from the actors that are supporting the international law. Those are at the moment those institutions which are not in the violence of the international law. And as I mentioned in my initial sentences, there are some actors which are breaking the international law.
Mr. Cingel, Baku has committed a crime against humanity in Nagorno-Karabakh, something that professionals call genocide. 10 months of blockade and the forced deportation of more than 100,000 Artsaksis, or ethnic Armenians from Nagorno-Karabakh. Yet there are no either political or economic consequences. Baku has suffered none. Baku autocratic regime feeds inner irrational feud within the society against Armenians on state level to keep power. What should the civilized world do about this continuing genocidal trend?
As I mentioned, the international community should pay a lot more attention to what is going on in Armenia, and especially what is going on with the displaced people from Artsakh. There has been some support in form of humanitarian aid, but there should be done a lot more. Not only humanitarian aid is needed, but also aid in form of political and diplomatic support is needed. In order, there could be some kind of a formula for their return to their homes under, of course, security, safety circumstances. That's first. Second, at the moment, maybe more urgent issue is the peace process between Armenia and Azerbaijan themselves, because as we can see, Azerbaijan is threatening Armenia on a daily basis with the military action if their conditions are not met, and they are coming up with the new conditions. That's why I stressed that there is a need for the solution that will be in the line with the international law, and that means that the territorial integrity of Armenia will be maintained and will be protected by the international actors of the international system.
After the forced deportation in NK, the genocidal trends we discussed, the civilized West, I believe, should be aiming Armenia to its teeth solely for self-defense. Now, is it what you see happening?
Unfortunately not. On one hand, yes, there is kind of a demand for the armaments and weapons and ammunition because of the war in Ukraine, the Russia's invasion of Ukraine. So on that, that is kind of taking a significant portion of the bandwidth and the attention of European Union, and European Union is trying to increase its capacities in terms of the military equipment.
All EU promised, by the way, is non-deadly weapons. Do you believe that that is enough?
No, that's definitely not enough, because Armenia's arsenal was severely damaged during the war in 2020, and it is understandable that Armenia needs means to protect its territory, because now we are talking about threats against the territory of the Armenia, which is internationally recognized. Which is, by the way, at the moment still some parts are occupied by Azerbaijan since May 2021 and then September 2022. So that should be something that more states should pay attention to. Like, for example, France, they delivered symbolic but important assistance in forms of weapons and ammunition. There should be also other countries doing so. Because Armenia is at the moment protecting itself, and those weapons, unlike Baku is trying to portray them, Armenia has no intentions of invading Azerbaijan, because that would be basically suicidal. So that is just a propaganda from the side of Baku.
In the meanwhile, Baku media, experts, education system demonize Armenia and Armenians, sponsored by state, as I already mentioned. This is an analogous situation of Rwanda genocide crafters 1,000 Hills propaganda system that are in jail now. UN Human Rights Council adopted resolution on the prevention of genocide submitted by Armenia. What should the logical continuation be?
Logical continuation should be that the international community is pushing on Azerbaijan to cease threats against Armenia, and also cease the activities that are endangering population of Armenia in the bordering areas on one hand, and on the other hand they should make pressure on Azerbaijan in order there is a formula for the population that was basically chased out from Artsakh, in order they can safely return to their homes and under the international protection continue their lives.
As you know, Baku refuses to negotiate on Western platform, but they also say the West is isolating us. How would you comment?
I would say that this argumentation has no real basis, because the West is in constant communication with Azerbaijan. We could see that the EU facilitated negotiations where also the Azerbaijan was participating. These declarations are in the light of the meeting from the last week from when Prime Minister of Armenia met with Secretary of State of the US and the representatives of the EU. But that meeting itself was not about Azerbaijan and the future of the regional kind of a framework in the South Caucasus. So the efforts of the international community to negotiate peace in the Southern Caucasus before included also Azerbaijan. They were present at the negotiations, and they themselves decided to withdraw from some of those platforms on their own will. So now it's time for them to actually join them and try to find a formula for stability and for peace with Armenia. But as I mentioned, under the auspices of those actors of the international system that are not violating the international law. That's why, in my opinion, EU and the US are the suitable mediators of this process, unlike, for example, Russia, which has a specific interest in this region, and as we can see recently, its goals in this region are aligning with Azerbaijan's.
Do you believe that the West's soft approach and efforts to placate and appease Azerbaijan have to do with the fact that Azerbaijan refuses to negotiate on Western platforms? Do you believe that a tougher approach would be the right thing if we want Baku back to the negotiations table?
Yes, tougher approach would be needed, but I don't think that the soft approach is caused by the position of Baku towards the negotiations. Softer approach of the especially European Union member countries and the European Union as an actor is more caused by the energy situation in the Europe. Azerbaijan is simply using the opportunity, the geopolitical opportunity, when the EU member countries of the EU are trying to search for alternative sources of the energy because they cut it supplies from Russia because of the sanctions and because the ongoing invasion of Russia to Ukraine. My country, Slovakia itself, had to, in very quick terms, switch its energy supplies from elsewhere. We were dependent by 97% on Russia's gas and 98% on Russia's oil. Now those percentages over 2 years dropped extremely significantly, and we are being supplied by the LNG through the LNG terminal in Croatia, for example. So that's the way how the EU is trying to cope with the energy crisis, and I think that's also the result at the moment why there is this kind of a soft or softer position on Azerbaijan.
The question is, does the soft approach result in Baku's withdrawal from the negotiations table on Western platforms?
As far as I remember, the Baku's withdrawal from these negotiations started a little bit earlier than when the EU was pursuing kind of a much stronger position on this issue. So I think that was on their part kind of a voluntary withdrawal, because they understood that if they will try to push Armenia either to bilateral framework or to the framework which would be guided or either under some kinds of auspices by Russian Federation, they can push Armenia for more concessions. But as I mentioned, the framework should be the international law and the territorial integrity of the Armenia, which can be at the moment maintained only by the actors which are playing by the international law, and that is US and the EU.
Mr. Cingel, how do you evaluate the stage at which Armenia-Slovakia relations are?
I can say that the relations are very amicable, and we are trying to improve them, of course. There is venue for improving especially the economical exchanges, because there are lots of interesting areas where both countries can cooperate. I know, for example, that next week there will be a big cultural event visit from Slovakia, organized by the Slovak embassy here in Yerevan, and there are some high officials visits planned to visit Armenia. So there is a venue for improving the relations. As you know, Slovakia is one of the countries that recognize genocide of Armenians. We have adopted a declaration of the Slovak Parliament, the National Council of Slovak Republic, about the genocide recognition. And in Bratislava, there is in a park very near to the city center, there is a Hachkar, the gift given by the Republic of Armenia, remembering those who were killed during the genocide.
Thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you very much for the invitation.
Founder and president of Slovakia-based think tank for strategic analysis, Jan Cingel, sat down with the First Analytical tonight.